Yes, we did.
All right, well, you've all got a copy of this budget.
You're right in the middle.
We got it up on the board too. Although, we got a little different order than I got here. But if you look at the page, we're down at the very bottom, it shows the year-end fund balances.
Give them lines and column numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, let's see.
One through 14 and what?
Fund balances, yeah. We call it the fund balances, and I got the sheet up here that tries to show you on column C, this is the end of the year last year, where we started with cash, and then column G over here, or column F rather, is where we ended this year. So you can see on column G, where it talks about the year-to-date change, and that's the changes that went on. We started out last year with $57,000 in the bank, and this year we're down to $42,000, decrease of about 15 grand. And then the fund balances that we have, let me say one other thing, for some of you don't realize it. We used to have a savings account, which we moved into the regular checking account now, instead of a separate number, so that's why the number doesn't show up there, it's included in the top. What we then do is we have a relief fund that we set up, that we maintain, and it started out 1,120 at the end of the beginning of the year. It ended up in 1977, so an increase of 857. The designated emissions is now up to, we started with 0 and it's now up to $1,103 as of the end of December. Another number we track is uncleared checks, because we write the checks if they're not cashed yet by the end of the month, then I have to show them down here as a liability, which will actually come off the bank account if they're going through. Then we set aside a reserve again of $20,000. My goal is, looking at line 13, the non-designated funds on column F, $17,516. And our budget really runs around $15,000 a month, and my goal is that we should at least always have 1 month reserve in the bank all the time. So that's non-designated funds, we got down there, there's $17,000. So the total in the bank as of February 1st was $42,064.
Stop for just a minute, Tom.
Yeah.
So our spending each month is somewhere around $15,000. That's what it takes to pay the bills, pay the staff, cover the missionaries, that sort of things. We have to keep track of what the bank balance is used for. So right now we have, as of the start of the month, we had about $5,000, line 11, column F, of checks that were out that hadn't been cashed. We had $20,000 that was money in reserve, a little bit more than what we need. If we didn't get any money in a month, we could pay our bills. And then we had money that was undesignated of $17,000. So we've got $37,000, line 12 and 13, of money that's available to spend. At the start of the year, we had $56,000. That's column C. Money was spent during the year, some of it on missions-oriented things that we intended to spend to help missionaries. We bought a keyboard, if you remember, for Peru missions. We spent some extra money in Cuba because they were struggling. We had expenses that we paid ahead of time for our insurance in a lump sum so that we could save money on interest. So we had more expenses than we intended, and so we spent more money last year than we expected. But we have a healthy, although lower bank balance than we did a year ago. The relief fund that you see, the 1977 in column F, line 5, and Tom will refer as he goes from one sheet to another. He'll refer to column.
Wait, got confused.
Scott, you can't keep track of everything.
Yeah.
He's talking about the big one up top.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
the
not
small
at
one
the
at
big
the bottom.
one on top, I'm still
Wait a minute.
at the one on the bottom that says fund balance.
Well, no, there's an
Yeah,
F on
but we
that
have
one.
CNNOP.
There is a column F on fund balances.
No,
Gee.
no, there isn't.
There's A, B, C, M, N, O, P.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
then,
Are you talking about the 3,000? Scott?
So you're in O.
shame on somebody, most likely me, why that sheet doesn't show column F, which is the end of the year.
It's
Uh,
O.
Let
Oh,
me look at this a
1977
minute.
is talking about. It's O.
Okay, your column O
Okay.
is the same as column F up here,
Okay.
okay? So column F here is your column O,
Oh.
okay? So column O is showing year end, December end of year. And so we have 42,364 in the bank. But that's 15,000 less than last year. That's money that was spent, missionaries, and, spending, for expenses that we didn't anticipate. So that's the money that's in the bank now. Back to Tom to go back over the, sheet that you've got above your fund balance.
Well, if you look on the back page of what you got here, instead of having the summary of each line item, we've got broken down in detail already. So, I can use that, the total, line 7 on here is the totals for last year on column D, which is the budget plan for last, column E is what we ended up the year with. 161,399 that came in on our regular tithes and offerings, not including the grants that we had for Faith Works before. We're just looking at what our tithes and offerings were. So in column E, line 7, $161,000 what we spent. We're proposing for this coming year the same thing, about $163,000 for this coming year. Skip down to the next yellow line, or line 16, where it says building and grounds. Last year, we spent, column E, $17,000. This year, we're budgeting $15,000.
Question, which one of those categories are we expecting to spend less on?
What was the question again?
We're budgeting less on buildings and grounds, and I'm wondering which one of those categories is not going to be as expensive.
As you look down the sheet, you'll see it.
215.
Yeah.
Tom will get to each category as he goes. Don't skip ahead on it.
Looks like landscaping, janitorial supplies,
If you,
pest control.
there's two sides of this thing here, which is a little different than what we had up on the screen up there.
Security.
Yeah, okay, so we're looking at this column.
Right, so I'm wondering why this is lower than this.
Yeah.
So I guess
Well,
we're not
15.
spending as much as landscaping unless we are.
Landscaping, remember, we were behind on a little bit this last time.
Right.
And you want to increase security line up to 1,200, which I got them for there. This is now between she and I where we go through this combination and put it together, so I need to stand over by her side and tell her what's going on, right?
There were some categories of expense that in 2023 were not paid in 2023. We didn't know that until we changed secretaries in March. And when Jennifer came in, she found out that there were bills that should have been paid in 2023 that were not paid in 2023. There were 3 or 4 different categories. There were some missionaries for whom that was true. Landscaping was one of those categories. And so we had to pay in 2024 some expenses that should have been paid in 2023. So our 2024 expense was higher than it should have been. Landscaping is one of those. But the comparison of line line F and E will show you a decrease. For instance, we're lower on line 16, building and grounds total, by about $1,700 because we're not spending money this year that should have been spent last year. We're balanced out at this point. Back to you, Tom.
I forgot about that.
Yes, I remember. Here's Tom.
Okay, so that was the total, that building and grounds total, which is line 16, the yellow across there we just talked about. The next yellow line is community services total, line 22. Down there, last year we spent $11,000. This year we're budgeting $7,000. What's the big difference? Look at line 21, relief expenses. We had an extra money that we spent through relief the last time, a total of $5,700. We're still only budgeting $2,500 for the year. But if you look under column C where we talk about that, we put down $5,000 is available, 5K available. But we budget, because that's usually what comes in on relief is about $2,500 a year. But we're prepared to take some of the other money out when we need to in order to make sure that we cover some of those relief requirements for our people that have difficulties within our own community. So I think skipping down to line 30, which is fellowship ministries total. Last year we spent $7,541 under column E. And this year we're projecting $5,500. And what's the difference? As you can see, with fellowship ministries, for the most part, we say that's the women's ministries in charge of all these things. So we spent a little bit more than normally. She said that they said that they would spend $4,000 a year, and I think we went a little over that this last year with gifts things. But anyway, those categories are broken down on that, and I think that speaks for itself. $5,500 is what we project for this year.
We interrupt again.
Yeah.
We are saving money on Sunday lunches because we've been able to set up a relationship with one of the food banks to where we're getting a lot of protein. Craig and Colleen go over maybe 1 to 3 times a month and pick up chicken, beef, a little bit of pork, along with some staples, and we think it reduces a lot of the cost. So you see the lunches where we spent $1,900 this last year. We think we're going to save a lot of money there. We're showing a $400 savings. It will likely be a little bit more than that. We're expecting to save a fair amount of money in the gifts and in kitchen supplies as well. We'll go up a little bit with spending money in special events. When Teresa gets to her part of the program in a few minutes, she'll talk a little bit about some of that. But we expect to save about $2,000 overall on the fellowship ministries, things among ourselves.
Okay.
Right. Another key item then down here, obviously, is worldwide missions that we do, which is line 45. And last year we budgeted $34,000. We spent $42,000 for a couple of different reasons. One is we hadn't paid all the missionaries into 2023 that we were supposed to, so we caught up in 2024. And then also we came up with some special requirements that we've already changed as far as some of the ministries that we're dealing with. So I budgeted the same as last year, $34,000, well, $100, $34,300 this year. And Dave Watley will explain all of that to you later on. But one of the other items I want to look at for you, on that column G over there, we got the percentage based on what the tithes and income were coming in. So we worldwide missions, we now budgeted 21%, and our goal is always to have at least 20% going for missions every year. Skipping down to operations total, line 55. Last year we spent 32,000. Amazingly, we're looking at about the same number this year, 32,000. The biggest single item we have down there is insurance, which is line 49. Skipping down finally to staff services, we budgeted 69,000 last year. We've spent 76,000, and we're budgeting this year 85,900, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit about the staff expenses that we're looking at this year and how we're going to pay for both the staff, we have 2 staff people as well as the pastor down here. Anyway, looking at the final total down here on line 62, total budgeted expenses. Last year we budgeted 163,000. And we spent $186,000, mainly for catching up on a lot of those other items, including the world missions. This year we're looking at $180,000, which is now 110% of the total income we budgeted. So looking at 63, the total is last year we budgeted having a deficit of $3,000. We ended up with a deficit of almost $25,000. And this year we're still looking at a deficit of $17,000 based on these numbers. So the detail between each one is one of the things that right now you're allowed to ask about, what you think of that, or what you think changes should be, or what your questions may be on it. So we'll accept now any questions for the individual line items that are going on down there.
On line 63, at the $17,000 deficit, is that based on last year's tidings?
It's based on the tithes were 163,000. Yeah. All those percentages are not based on the total percentage of the expense, but rather based on the percentages that would come out of the tithes and offerings, which comes out to a negative once you get down to the end there. We're actually budgeting 110% of that.
So in our estimation of how we plan the budget, Dave Watley does his best estimate of what he expects giving to be based on the most recent quarter or so. And so he'll attempt to project, for instance, we've had seasons when we knew that this family or that family was going to retire and move away. Or we have a family perhaps that in this year or that year started attending the church towards the end of the year and were giving only for the last 2 or 3 months. And so we knew that the giving, because they were there, would be a little more. So Dave has looked at the giving as well as he can. And again, reminding you, he and Becky and the people who give are the only ones who know what someone's individual giving is. They don't look at it. The deacons don't examine individual giving records. Only Dave and Becky know. So Dave will say to the leadership, I expect the giving this year to be about this amount. So if you look at the top, line 7, column F, the 163, that's what he's estimating the giving to be. The giving last year was line 7, column E, 161,399. That included relief funds and designated funds, which really are part of what we have money to spend. But if you look at the total down at, let me find the right column. If you look at line 62, column F, we plan to spend $180,100. We will be short $17,100 if our giving isn't more. We have in our non-designated funds on the fund balances sheet enough money to cover that if giving doesn't change and if the expenses don't go up. But we will be down at this time next year to a much lower bank balance if that occurs. This is the first time in several years that we are at that circumstance. I remind you that 4 weeks ago almost, we sent out a letter to the church that said if you would like to give a special gift at the end of the year to the church, we would encourage you to pray and do that. And we received extra giving at the end of the year of about $16,000. That may occur this coming year or not. We're not depending on what we expect to cover our expenses. God has covered us very well. And we do not base our budget and say we are going to have to cut back. We're going to cut staff salaries. We're going to cut missionaries. We are going to balance our budget. We're not the federal government or the state government who says we'll do that and then raise taxes or do this. We don't come to the church and say, you guys better give more money because we don't have enough money to meet our expenses. If you decide when we get to next week that this is a budget that we should have, and you have the ability to say, no, we don't think we should spend the money, we believe God would have us spend less, you have the ability to make those recommendations. We believe this is what God is doing or not doing, and we will hear what God says and adjust. You may say, no, we want to give more money to missions. We believe that's what God's doing. And we will adjust, we meaning the church, not leadership. We will adjust based on what we believe, what you believe God is saying. And then we'll expect God to respond accordingly, because that's what he's done. But we can only do what we hear God doing at the time we're making the plans. As of right now, leadership believes that God wants us to spend $180,000 this coming year. But we're waiting now, as Tom just said, to hear what you think. But if this is where we end up, then we will plan to spend $180,000. And we may find we spend $190,000, or we may spend this less. But we're waiting to hear from you. So you want to look at what you have in front of you, what you see here. We're anxious, waiting to see what you think.
Can I say something about the gifts budget?
Yes.
So part of the reason that was so high this year is because I didn't know what to do with the pastor appreciation donations. So all of the pastor appreciation spending came out of gifts, but the donations went, but we got donations to cover that. It's not, it doesn't really show.
Right, yeah.
I think we have a better way of doing designated things for this coming year. I just can't remember what it is we talked about.
I know
Hopefully Tom remembers, or Mike.
the women's, previously, I just took the single line item to them. They said, well, we want to spend $4,000. Okay, it's $4,000. Oh, but then they did break it down. Okay, so I broke it down. Well, now, even today, they have some other numbers that they were including there. And it's kind of like, stick it in the gifts, or otherwise I've got a line down there that says administration. I don't know what to stick it under administration.
That's what we decided.
That's the plan for next year.
That's what administration is for, stick everything else we can't find a place for.
So, but at least I have broken it down this year. Last year I just put it down.
Yes.
So if it doesn't, but going along with what she says, you have to recognize, folks, that most of the internal stuff that goes on around here, the women are in charge of it, do. Us guys just follow along with it, okay? So we track where to spend the money, but,
Get out of here. No.
for example, I know that we do have some gifts that are handed out at different times, and they actually have that budget, they know how much of it allowed for that, because now they're spending money on postage and everything else. And that keeps coming up, you know, where even member called me, she says, you know, I forgot to include all the postage in this, so you gotta raise this other part, again. So I change them once in a while.
There are
We'll get it figured out.
3 elephants in the room that are getting ready to leave the room, so you can talk about them. And I direct your attention to lines 59 and 60. So Jennifer, you and Colleen and I, the 3 elephants in the room, are getting ready to leave. On your mark, get set, leave.
I'm an elephant.
Yes.
But before that happens, I have a question in missions, but
Okay?
what exactly does opportunistic missions mean?
Yeah.
Well.
Because that's new one on me, you didn't talk about that with me.
Well,
Yeah.
opportunistic commissions means, we spent some money that way, $900, $1,600 last year on some other named stuff. We just left it in here with $1,000, just saying that no day when something comes up like that.
You're gonna come up with something you wanna spend money on, and we don't have money to do it.
Oh, so that's discretionary.
Right, yeah, there you go.
It's kind of a.
Jen,
I have a question for you guys.
They're not ready.
It's not about you,
Stop
but
pushing it.
I wanna know a little bit about Christian education.
let's talk about that
Oh,
after
you
we talk
can,
about
yeah,
it.
later,
This is not the final element.
okay, all right.
You're supposed to leave too.
He's like, could you just?
I don't know. Much-
Yeah,
you
everyone
didn't
said
tell me.
that, one of the
Yeah.
staff.
I've been an elephant in the room many times.
Chris, I'd like you and Tom to moderate this part of the conversation.
Get out of here. Don't pop your head and tell us what you want.
Okay, talking about the staff down here. One of the line items, if you look at it down here, let's look at the janitorial staff. I put down includes taxes of $672. Well, what happens if you see how much we spent last year, it only says $6,700. The problem is the taxes really, we spend once a quarter out there. And we charge it to the IRS instead. So the numbers we put down here for this year, for example, on janitorial staff, $7,800. That's up from $7,500 last year. You say, well, yeah, but we only spent $6,700. Well, no, because part of that included the taxes falls in place on line 56. We have to pay the taxes separately as a separate line item all the time, once a quarter. So, but I have to put them all in there because it's going to add up to those numbers on our column F down there. The janitorial staff is going to cost us $7,800, even though she's going to get income tax taken out of that, so she doesn't net. So right now, and what we did when the deacons met, we said, well, first of all, we were underpaying the janitorial staff for a while there, so we gave her an extra $300 at the end of this year just to make it balance. And this time, to round it out, we said let's pay them $7,800 for next year instead of just the $7,500. And then on the pastor's salary, we've been trying to increase that every year, and so we went from 48 I think the year before up to 50 this year, and we projected 60 this year, which I'll let Chris talk about that too. The secretary staff was another, I am totally now, and Mike is not here, but the secretary staff before with Robin one was in there that we calculated for, and she was spending fewer hours a week than we were doing now. And as a result, we missed a whole lot of numbers that we should have had in there in the past. And so we've ended up spending almost, here, 11 plus you gotta add in sales tax, or, I'm sorry, payroll tax into that. And right now, the way we have it set up with Jennifer, she's, I think, scheduled for around, it was 17 or 18 hours a week, whereas Ron was only spending about 5 or 6 hours a week. So, and as you can see, Jennifer's doing a whole lot more this year than we ever did last year for it. And the same thing with the pastures, we've tried to upgrade that for different reasons. So, you want to talk about that, Chris?
Yeah, so part of what we've been talking about is succession planning. So one of the key things that we're thinking about as far as pastoral salary is at some future date, we will need to afford a pastor who will come in, maybe somebody who needs a higher salary. It will be a heavier hit for us to continue to grow small and to have this ginormous jump. So we're creating some space over, the next 5, 6, 10 years, however long the Lord says we'll continue to have Pastor Scott in. And so as we work through that process, it helps us to have a good grasp on the budget as far as being able to afford pastoral staff in a pastoral staff search in some future day. And so there's a strategic element to that as far as succession planning. Number 2 is we are seeing just the increases of cost, as inflation is hitting, as things are going on. And so the scripture is very clear about, making sure that the ox who's treading up the grain is also able to, be able to take care of their needs, right? And so in this, we also want to make sure that our pastor is taken care of and that we are helping in that way. So 11% seemed like a really kind of a conservative increase for him this year. That's what we're asking everyone to consider. The other thing too about the secretary staff and the hourly, the rates haven't changed, the hours have. And I just have a question for you guys. Have you seen an increase in the performance from the office? Is there something there that you're saying, hey, this has been a huge increase for us? And if that's true, we should pay for that. And so again, Jennifer's doing a lot of hours, even off the books, where she's just got her heart in as a ministry for her. And I think it's a good thing for us to take care of her as well. So those are the considerations that I wanted to point out there. Back to you, Tom.
I have something to say about that too. And God forbid, but if we're not able to meet our budget, Pastor Scott made it clear that we can make adjustments to his salary through the year as needed, if needs be. But our thought is, or my thought, the way things are going right now, we'll probably be able to maintain this budget. But if it's not, then Pastor Scott's okay with making adjustments in order to stay within our budget. But Lord willing, we won't have to do that.
Right.
Because if we have to get another pastor in the future, we're not going to be able to have that courtesy from this pastor to the next. See what I'm saying? So anyhow, that, and as far as Jennifer's concerned, the office is running like 1,000% better than it was. I haven't even spotted mistakes in the bulletin. There used to be mistakes in the bulletin all the time. So I think that's a word of proud as well.
Hey, Tom, I have a question. You have the taxes for the secretary at 12 and for janitorial 16 or 672, which is 1872. But the budget for payroll taxes is only 1,600. It's a difference of $272.
Well, that's because, let's take a look at the janitorial staff. I put the $7,800 out. In fact, a portion of that is going to go back up into the line 56 for payroll taxes.
Oh, okay.
But And same thing with Jennifer down there, so it's kind of like, the catch-22, well, how do I really show this? Because, you know, the actual checks that they get are separate. I mean, they deduct it from that payroll check, and that money that's deducted sits in a bank there for 3 months before it gets paid to the IRS. So, all right, I'm just telling you that this is what amount of money the church is costing us. The $1,600 is what we are as the employer. We have to pay taxes on them too. So that $1,600 is how much the church has to pay for.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then those other numbers will come out of that, but we will also pay that too, so. It's just a little sleight of the hand to come out with the same numbers. I think Jennifer is up to, I think it's $17 an hour right now that we forecasted at this time. Which we went back through our books over the last several years, and that's what we used to pay people, 5, 6, 8 years ago. I mean, my daughter worked here for a while at that price, and Jean did too, and they made, $17, $18 an hour on it too. So that's why we felt we got to do that for Jennifer based on the fact that she spends 17 hours a week on it. But she's even told us that she's trying to get other people to help or do different things to where she doesn't have to put all those extra hours in and so keep it down to that. So that's, so whereas the janitorial staff is a fixed salary amount, a fixed amount for the year, and the same way the past year, no secretary is based on hourly rate. So if she doesn't work, then it doesn't cost. The more she has to work, the more it's going to cost. So that's why it's nice to be able to help her out and make sure that we make life easier for her. And she's got a myriad of things to do, as you know. The other insert that she puts in here every week, and also the other preparation that she's going on for anyway. If you could hear all the stuff the pastor sticks to her desk all the time, I said.
Are you saying give her a raise?
Yeah.
At least on the passive legs.
Well, the fact that she put in a lot of time straightening you and David, and she all three put in a lot of time straightening up the fact that the person before was not getting things done and not working enough hours, and you can't, people have to be compensated for their time. I mean, I'm not sure I would work for $17 an hour.
That's taken into consideration as well, that she took on that job as a temporary thing.
She did.
And she had absolutely zero intention of staying on as the secretary because she's a stay-at-home mom that educates the children at home. And so now she's sacrificing that time, but we asked her, since we saw the work she was doing as a board. Yeah, it was probably more like beg her to stay on, because things were just so much better with her.
Oh, she's made my job so much easier than it was before.
And mine too.
And if she was gonna leave, I told her, well, I'm leaving too then.
So she's been blackmailed into staying, or begged into staying, one or the other. But no, she loves the job and she's really good at it.
I know, she's just a great asset for us.
It is a ministry to her.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion? Is there somebody making a recommendation here, or?
Yeah, if the women can make the motion, we'll make the motion that we accept this as it stands.
Yeah, I think now all of the little members can make motions.
I think,
But so
that this,
you can also make motions to increase or decrease. That's kind of what the discussion is we would like them to come back in and we can say, hey, this is what we would like to see happen. And then there will be an adjustment made to that line item.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor about all three salaries or just?
Does that have to be a guy that motions?
This is
Go for it,
membership.
Becky.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have a discussion on her salary, because I think it should be more than $17 an hour.
Well, under this new one, it's gonna come out to about 18 something.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I did plug it in.
Yeah. 1810 something.
That's why I want to talk, well, we actually had a meeting on that with the deacons.
We'd like to confirm that.
What did we come up with, 17 or 18 now?
I thought it was 18.
I did some math and it came out to 1810.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay. Well, that math includes, so you'll see the secretary hourly also includes the taxes.
Right.
So that's not her hourly rate. It's hourly rate plus burden. And so
Well, that's
it'll be a little bit.
But you notice, what if the fast food people get $20 an hour now or something? So, but still, they don't take home $20 an hour either.
No, we don't.
Are we thinking, just confirming that she has a dollar raise? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, well,
That'll change the budget projection.
Yeah.
I think it's already in at that already.
Yeah, that would bring it to
Okay.
Keep in mind is that that's a flexible number, an hourly rate. so it changes to a week.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? We're gonna bring those guys out of the cold here soon. So we wanna make sure that we're moving along. Do you have any other thoughts or questions or?
So are we discussing the,
So
raise from the $17 an hour to like 18 or something
The
for,
three line items, Tom, we're talking about professional services or professional expenses, pastoral staff salary, and secretary staff salary or hourly.
Based on these numbers, and I think we already voted on $18 an hour, that's why Mike and I were doing the computation, well, how many hours is she working? And is that for all 52 weeks a year? They take off at certain times of vacation, so her salary is going to adjust based upon how many hours she works per year. So this is an annual rate, so when she works it over, doesn't take any vacation time, she works from home sometimes, works when she's away every all. So she's perfectly content with this number here too, I should say so. But, so on those three, is there, I guess the question is, do we make a motion so we can discuss and then second it, and then if we all agree, then we can vote on that. In fact, I don't even know if we have to vote this time, because this is really
We're making recommendations.
information for us, because it's not till next week where the official
vote comes.
meeting comes in, and that's where we would vote on it. So the question is right now, do you have any other questions about that you want to discuss? Okay.
Is the amount you're thinking that would be a cost, a yearly cost, is that based upon how many hours have been worked, or how many you project to have worked? Because I'm saying, when you first took over, it was a really big mess, and she worked a lot of hours, whereas now, she's got it like a little bit,
Settle down a little bit now, you know.
so,
I think she figures it was 17 or 18 hours, it's kind of almost the same what we're paying, but we're figured on about 18 hours a week is what she's been doing. So on the average, but, you know, that's gonna
fluctuate.
it fluctuates under the demand of what's factored into it.
Yeah, so this looks like, if I just ran the cost straight, at $18 an hour, 16,000 is 888 hours, which over 52 weeks is 17 hours. Is that about right? 17 hours a week?
That's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay? We're ready to call them back in now? We're not recommending any changes right now.
No. She moved that we accept the
Kim's got a question back there.
What's the other thing we're supposed to talk about? Isn't there like 3 different things we're supposed to talk about?
Pastor's salary.
Pastor salary, Jennifer, and what else?
Professional expenses.
No,
No, this is just on those three.
janitorial services.
Yeah.
Just staff services.
Yeah,
What's
that's,
on janitorial?
what's that?
What is on janitorial? What do we have down for that?
for $7,800 for the year. And that's for the cleaning staff, the,
That's what it was.
Is that for additional maintenance, or is that for like outdoor and indoor?
no,
It's
indoor.
Only indoor?
Yeah, building and grounds up ahead, we have landscaping out there, and we have a lot of, obviously volunteer work that we do too, from both outside and inside too, so it's not, the only paid people are these three that were paid. The rest is either outside services, which landscaping is, or for all the other expenses that come in, that it, for example, all of those fixed expenses, as you well know, paging prices are going up, gas prices going up, water prices going up, insurance is going up. We have no control over those things, so. And that's life as we know it today. Okay,
Very good, Tom.
right?
So I think we're okay with bringing it back.
Yeah.
Awesome, I'll go grab it.
They've all been fine.
So revenues and audience.
That's it.
Yeah, no. No, some changes. And it stands now, yeah. That's what we agreed, yeah. But next week.
What happened to the other ones? They don't leave?
Well, I was in the question. I heard Chris go out, so he's
We like what we see so far.
So Shane, you had a question about Christian Ed?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe hear some sort of. Oh, sorry.
So did you finish on the budget, Tom?
We just,
We finished
We
that,
all fired?
that
first,
part, that piece of budget.
personnel staff,
Okay,
so all agreed on that.
okay.
That's all.
All right, Sheena had a question about Christian Ed.
Can we hear a little bit of detail of what that number is about?
Red line 17, $1,800.
That's kind of Richard's evaluation.
Well, that is something Ariel's requested.
$150 a month. Do you have any idea, as you've looked at invoices, what that money's been spent on? Jen? So give us an update on that.
That pays for the snacks for the children's church. And all of the Bible study books that the churches had to buy for the various Bible studies that we've been doing. And mostly it.
For adult curriculum.
Adult, yeah, the adult, it's basically, all the books that we sent to people in prison came out of that.
Sent for what?
The books that we sent to the people in prison, the Bible study books, stuff,
Oh,
Christian
Yeah,
education.
yeah.
So that's where a lot of that stuff came out.
do you have a rough idea of how much was sent to Aaron and Kyle and
Rand,
Leanne, Rand?
$75?
Yeah, so,
$100?
so the bulk of it is for children's church stuff.
Or adult Bible study. I mean, we've had two, we've had the Bonhoeffer one and
And
the
Thursday,
Ed Peterson one. And
Yeah.
the church bought all those books, and those are several $100s.
Yeah, plus the 10 books, 10 Bibles.
And the 10 Bibles for their Bible
so it's
study.
not just children's,
And it might have,
It's just.
it might have paid for Right Now Media, because that's expensive. And that's not in budget. Some people
did, some
Paid
didn't.
for that, like reimburse the church, but we didn't want anybody to not be able to do it,
Right.
so the
So-
church paid for it.
I think that's a really good question. Is it possible for you this week to look at those invoices and next Sunday give us a breakdown of how much was children's Christian ed, how much was adult Bible study, how much was prison ministry? Let's get that breakdown. I think that'd be helpful to look at. That's a really good question. I think it would be good for us to have that breakdown.
Sure.
And that'll give us some ideas to whether that should be continued or whether we should supplement more for kids' Christian ed. I think that's really good. That's a good question.
And I need to figure out where Right Now Media came from, because that's gonna wanna renew this year.
Yeah.
Do we wanna do that? So, I don't know if anybody's ever mentioned it.
Okay. Any other questions on any other line item on the budget? We will look at it again next week and we'll get a review on the Christian Ed stuff for next week. We will, during the time after the service, when we have the voting portion of our meeting, we will review more concisely the budget and vote on it. So this is not our last opportunity to look at the budget, but we will have another opportunity. Donna, did you have something? Okay. Any other discussion on the budget? Okay, then here's Teresa on women's ministry.
Can I bring my service animal?
Sure. Yes.
And I'm going to turn this off.
I think the thing to, okay.
Move this out of the way.
Well, you're fine. Women's Ministry Board members are myself, Diane Everhart, Shirley Pettit, Jennifer Stetson, Lori Gray, Ina McLaughlin, Colleen Camp, Sheena Officer, and Suzette Olson. We exist as servant leaders to edify, serve, and educate the church body here at Bridgeway Community Church. We strive to bring the body of believers here together, to bond with each other, and to grow in the love of Jesus and as a family. We meet monthly, usually on the first Sunday of the month after church. Our meetings are usually open meetings, and anyone who is interested may attend. Our responsibilities include decorations, Sunday lunches, Samaritan Purse shoeboxes, kitchen and pantry maintenance, communion preparation, prayer chain, yard beautification, church calendar, special events, i.e. picnics, variety show, Mother's and Father's Day, etc. If anyone is interested in helping with any of these things, please speak to one of us. We would be glad to have the help. We never turn away helping hands. I have an unofficial calendar for this year. It has the things that we hope to do in those months, but not specific dates. I hope to have a 6-month calendar to post after our next meeting in February with actual dates for the first 6 months of the year. So just bear with us if you would, please. This month we have the congregational meeting next Sunday. In March, we hope to have a lemon cook-off. In April, we hope to have a chili cook-off and Easter brunch. May, the church picnic and Mother's Day. June, Father's Day. And in July, if that month works out for Sheena, hopefully the talent show. October, we have Pastor's Appreciation Sunday. November, we will have a holiday lunch before Thanksgiving like we did this year. In December, we plan to have a Women of the Church's Christmas party like we did last year. We had a whole lot of fun at that. And then we have New Year's game night planned. If you guys have any ideas or things you want to do, we would also be glad to hear those. We're willing to listen. Some of the financial things, like Pastor was saying, we probably will have a little less expenses with Sunday brunch with the protein coming from the gleaners.
Of course, that also depends on whether people are getting reimbursed.
Right.
So we budgeted that so that people could get reimbursed, and then they aren't.
But
But you have to ask to get reimbursed, because otherwise I don't know what you're spending. So a lot of that depends. But the protein's the expensive bit, so now that we're getting that.
And we try to provide as much of that as possible. So. If you're interested in being in charge of a Sunday lunch, which doesn't mean you have to cook it, it just means you have to organize it, make sure you have the people that are cooking and cleaning and so forth and so on. We will be more than willing to put you on the list. There's 8 of us currently that are rotating through, but we would gladly have 12 of us or more. So feel free, even if you only want to do it once, that's fine too. We would gladly have you. But we should see, I think we'll see a big reduction in some of what we're spending there. A lot of our kitchen supplies and stuff, we've tried to divide it out a little more. Most of the paper products and stuff will be coming out of the Sunday lunch fund because that's where we use the majority of it. And then most of the coffee and stuff for setups for Sunday is the Sunday lunch fund. Yes, Sheila?
Just on the Sunday lunch, I know for a fact we have guys in here that can cook, so don't leave that open to just the women.
Yeah, Dave Watley's been doing a great
I
job.
know.
Richard makes a really good
And
soup,
Craig.
we know that.
Craig and Watley are on the rotation.
Okay.
They're the only ones that volunteer.
So is there any
The rest you
questions
guys need to think about
for
it.
me?
No question, but I do have a comment.
Mhm.
When I do pick up food, I always post on there what I picked up and how many pounds. If we can take what we're going to be doing and start using that up,
Yeah,
then I can get more of it.
yeah, like I used 3 of the big packages of chicken for today, so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's so much easier when it's there. Just remember to thaw it out.
Your rotation, is that, if you have 8 folks, is that 7 weeks off, 1 week on?
Pretty much, yeah,
Okay.
right now.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes,
No.
please.
Next week is my rotation, and we're gonna be doing, pizza, it's gonna get ordered in, and then I'm in charge of getting sides together, but I'm gonna be gone until Sunday morning, so at a funeral down south. So I'm not gonna have a chance to really coordinate that, so I'm gonna ask all you folks now, and then I'll repost it on the lunch date. But I'm gonna need you guys to step up and help out with that,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be unable to,
Okay,
okay?
no problem.
And I already talked to Jennifer about that, so I apologize, but I'm doing my part of that rotation right now, but I'm asking you guys to,
Well, actually, that worked out good for you because it was supposed to be this week, because that's,
Yeah.
because I won't be
I'm
here next
salad and
week, so
desserts.
it's just salad and.
yeah.
Yeah.
Salad and cookies.
We get nothing and all we have
And
is.
whatever.
And I'm making a whole bunch of buffalo wings.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so then in another case, I'm free to pretty much just do what I need to do in my family and,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
And if something happens and whoever's in charge gets sick or something, we'll cover it. Something's here. Nobody's gonna walk out and just leave.
Having
things on
the
table.
8-week rotation is nice, because then the ones who have not done it have capacity, hopefully, to
Plus you
cover.
have time to look at Craig's list and see what he's got from the
Craigslist.
And on the gifts budget there, we are doing the gift baskets and stuff that Suzette is putting together. So that's where there's a little more expenses coming there for the welcome baskets and the birthday and
Postage and cards.
postage.
I think that's actually been really nice, because we least expected to get a card. Condolences, I mean, we've got a couple of them this year. Thank you, Suzette. I mean, since Ann Whiteman, that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So
Been a while.
If I say, yeah, I want to do that.
Anybody, anything else?
Okay,
I'm thinking.
you should have a copy of the current roster of folks in the church. I'll take a couple of minutes to go over that. We've organized it a little differently. So let me begin and look at I shouldn't have unplugged so quickly, but now that I am unplugged, I'll just go by the copy that I have. In the top, kind of towards the left-hand side, you see a shaded box that says Legend. If you see a name that's bold, that's somebody that is in either the Deacons Board or Women's Ministry or has responsibility in a ministry. If you see an asterisk besides their name, that means they're not part of a separate household. If you see that large 0 with a slash, they're not included in the participation, which you see in a shaded box down in the bottom right-hand corner, which I'll go through in a moment. And if you see a place where there is a number and a slash and a number, that indicates the number of households and the number of children. So if you look to the immediate left where it says couples, no children at home, you see a 10/0. There are 10 couples and they have no children at home. If you look over to the right, you see 2-parent families. There are 5 of those with 10 children. So that's the way that legend works. If you look down at the bottom right where you see the shaded box participation, the units, you see 43. That's at the end of the year in 2024. We have 24 different units, that is separate families and or individuals. At the end of the year, last year, 2023, we had 39. At the end of the year 2019, pre-COVID, we had 47. We had 61 adults at the end of 2024. At the end of 2023, we had 58. At the end of 2019, we had 64. That's, again, pre-COVID. Children, we have more children now than we did a year ago, more children now than we did 2019. The total number, if you add the number of adults and the number of children, we have 80. A year ago, we had 71. Pre-COVID, we had 76. Our average attendance now is 50. And on another sheet that I'll have next week, I have our attendance last year. It was 43. And our attendance average pre-COVID was about 80. So we've been averaging the last 8 weeks of 2024, we've been averaging about 50 compared to 53 last year. If you look in the right-hand column, these are people not included in any of the numbers to the left. So our shut-ins are Janelle Kelly. Janelle lives up north of town off of Jelly's Ferry. Wilcox up above there, over on the west side of the freeway. She lives by herself. Her son Jonathan and his son Joseph used to attend church here. I ran into him last week at Walmart. He lives with his girlfriend and her kids about a block and a half down the street here, but not attending church. Joseph, who now is about 10 years old, plays around on our parking lot from time to time, but they're not coming to church. I've called Chanel probably 2 or 3 times a month, but all I ever get is voicemail. Billy Minat is the mother of Loretta, who is the lady that started the chili cook-off 2 years ago and died of cancer. Millie is 98 years old. I went to see her this last week. She is physically doing very well. She is sharp as a tack, 98 years old. Would that we all were that sharp, but she is not able to get out. But loved seeing me. I hadn't talked to her for a while, but she's doing well. Chris Santos and Sally Wolster are both people that have been in the Olson's Bible study, and they are both, I think, active on our prayer chain, and I think active in the Bible study, but not able to get to church until we can get some way to provide transportation beyond what we've been doing. Marilyn Steves, I call her, but there's never an answer. I haven't seen her since I went by about a month ago. I'm probably not going to get by before Colleen and I leave and go to Australia a week from tomorrow. Jamie Tennepier is in a skilled nursing facility.
No.
Is he home now? Okay, well, that's good to know. So I'll put him, well, now Charlotte has been coming to church. I don't know whether she'll do that now that he's home, probably not. So I'll rearrange the roster to show that. Visitors, I talked to Lino on the phone. He's got a couple of projects he's working on, and his hope is to be able, sometime in mid-February, to start coming back to church. Charlotte and Harlan, I think, are hoping to move down south into a minister's retirement home down somewhere in the middle of the state. Nikki and Wesley are Tina's adult children and have attended from time to time. Don, Finn, and Marty Sujimoto, Marty is her son. They live around the corner in the Bayless Apartments and are occasional visitors. Haven't seen them for a while. Jose and his wife have a child and attend. They're Hispanic and pretty much Spanish only, attend once in a while. Latanya and her granddaughters have attended. They were here a week or so ago, but they've been back and forth to Sacramento. Lisa and Evelina, I talked to them on the phone. They're still not in a permanent place, but they have gotten some help from Care and hope to get into a place soon. Kyle and Aaron are both still in prison, serving out their services. I'm back and forth with them. Correspondence, several of you have written to them, and a couple of you have gotten phone calls from Aaron. Rayanne Scott was in jail here, but she is now at the state hospital in Napa, and we've sent her some reading materials, done that with Aaron and Kyle as well. Daryl Jones is a former pastor from First Christian Church. He's in jail up in Oregon, and I've been corresponding with him. These friends that you see below, Patty and David Kane, are Chris's friends, have not been to church for a month or two. Nick is a friend of Suzette and Craig's. Greg was a friend of Chris's. He was in church last week. Peggy is our house sitter. She's going to be at the house the next week or so. I've been in touch with her, and she's hoping to get back to church after we get back from Australia. The list of people on the left, I think, are pretty current, and you see pretty much who's who there. Any questions about any of the categories or the way you see things there? Any changes that you see?
Pastor Scott.
Yes, Dave. Yeah, I see the time. All right then. Chris, would you pray and send us out, and we'll continue missions next week, worship next week for the reports, and then the meeting after church.
Father, we thank you for this life that we have in Jesus, Lord, this life that we have together, Lord, that you called us out and placed us in a family. Lord, all these things that we've discussed today, the numbers, the rosters, each one has a story, each one has a value. Lord, I pray that you would, by your Holy Spirit, help us to understand those things and to understand what values we ought to put on what things. Lord, as we go into the service today, continue to speak to us as we go through this week. Lord, continue to guide us, and as we come next week to voting, Lord, I pray that you would give us wisdom and discerning in that. And I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I got you. In my head. Yeah.
We could have a, trivia night.
Yeah, 70 music trivia night.
Yeah, fire truck minute. I got the fire truck was on the street, Luther, and the ambulance was in by your apartment. Yeah, just one
Okay.
We differ. I love her. She got a job at Walmart. Oh, I don't think it's
We're walking over it, rescue as much as we can.
Use your ears.
Yeah.
Every morning.
Bible study, eleven at February 6th. Yeah, and the book of Ruth, and at both places. We just need to know if it's 1:30 Yeah, we're gonna get with today, Jennifer on flyers, this week. Let me make sure I said that date right. What time is it?
Well, I got no cable, I was at home. So. It is, and you have to run it.
Now, the little white one.
It's got the survey on it. Is that the?
But they have to have a certificate trained.
Oh, you're giving me coffee?
Yeah. I guess if you're setting a goal, the specific purpose of the goal is just to keep the nurseries up right now and work on other work later. I'm just saying, I mean, if we find somewhere she needs to feel that she has a. But